Hello and welcome to the Soar to Success Summit. I'm Vanessa Levin, your host, and I'm also the presenter for today's session. This session is a topic that I think many of you will agree we didn't know we needed last year at this time, and things have certainly changed, haven't they? So without further ado, let's get started with your distance learning roadmap. In this webinar, I'm going to show you how you can plan, prepare, and implement age-appropriate interactive lessons with your pre-K students virtually. And no, it's not the same as classroom teaching, but I'll show you exactly how it differs and where to focus your energy. You'll be able to effectively communicate with parents so they'll have more realistic expectations about your role as a virtual teacher, and they'll have the support they need to extend learning at home. You'll be equipped with practical strategies to effectively reach your students when we all know that virtual learning is not ideal. You'll also have a roadmap for the flow of an ideal virtual learning lesson, and you'll feel confident that you're enough as a teacher and that you are adequately adapting your teaching to the brave new world of distance learning. I want to address the elephant in the room first and share this email with you that landed in my inbox recently. So I was watching a news interview with the dean of a university about preparations for students returning in the fall. And she said that humans will do almost anything to avoid uncertainty because our brains are wired to do so. And if you think about it right now, at this very minute, when it comes to schools reopening, the amount of uncertainty we as teachers face is enormous. You know, and most states are already planning for what school will look like next year, but there is still going to be a lot of uncertainty that we'll have to face in the coming months. And if you asked 10 teachers from 10 different school districts what their school's plan is for next year, you will get 10 different answers. Some are going back to their regular schedule, but requiring face masks and hand sanitizer. Others are planning for possible extended intersessional breaks, up to 6 weeks each, and a later school year end date. And still others are planning for built-in remote learning and staggered in-person attendance. But my point is that no matter what your school does or doesn't have planned for next year, it's wise to prepare for the possibility of more school closures. Now, you're in the right place if you're feeling confused because you know virtual teaching is not the way young children learn best, but you're still required to do it. Your kids have teeny tiny little attention spans, so how long should your classes be? And you're also in the right place if you're struggling with how to replicate what you do in the classroom on a screen. How do you keep young children engaged in your virtual classes? How do you make your lessons feel warm and inviting instead of cold and impersonal? You just wish somebody would give you a roadmap you could feel good about. And you're in the right place if you're feeling frustrated by all the new tech that's preventing you from being the excellent teacher that you know you are in the classroom. And you're feeling anxious about getting it right for your students and families because they depend on you. So I want you to do me a favor. And right now, I want you to think about which of those 3 things resonated with you the most. Just sit with them for a minute and think about it. Number 1 was you were feeling confused. Number 2 is overwhelmed. And number 3 is frustrated. I want you to think about how you're feeling about virtual teaching in this coming school year. It's really hard, while you think about it, it's really hard to show up for your students if you're feeling confused, overwhelmed, and frustrated. And I'm so glad you're here because you deserve better and your students deserve to have a teacher who still loves teaching, even when doing it on a screen, instead of one who's constantly confused, overwhelmed, and frustrated. So after you thought about those three things, number one being confused, number two being overwhelmed, and three being frustrated, I want you to take a pencil or a pen or a writing implement and write down which one of those three things is most concerning to you. If there's more than one of those three things, write those numbers down. And if all three of them resonate with you, and if you feel all three of those, write all three numbers down. So that's 1, 2, and 3. We'll come back to that later. So I spent 20 plus years in the classroom in several leadership roles. And in addition to the 20 years in the classroom, I've coached and mentored thousands of teachers just like you. And throughout my time spent teaching and mentoring, I've discovered what constitutes good teaching in extremely diverse circumstances, from language differences to severe behavior challenges, special needs, and now to virtual learning. And I've been successfully guiding my group of mentees virtually inside the teaching tribe. And I've already been helping them navigate teaching virtually during school closures. And my inbox is flooded with emails from those I've helped, thanking me for providing support and guidance throughout this crisis. So if you're feeling confused, overwhelmed, and frustrated when it comes to teaching virtually, if you want to up your virtual teaching game, and if you believe your students deserve to have age-appropriate, interactive, and engaging lessons, then you need to keep watching. Can you imagine what it would feel like if you didn't have to reinvent the wheel every single day, and you could finally bring engaging, interactive lessons to your students, even while teaching virtually? Wouldn't that feel amazing? So we all know the importance of developing social emotional skills and how vital they are to children's healthy development, yet they are also the most difficult skills to support virtually. So how can you support social emotional development of your students in a virtual setting? And how do you make your lessons feel warm and inviting instead of cold and impersonal? That's what we're going to talk about in step 1. So the number one question I've received about this distance learning is, how do I keep them engaged? And I'm going to say something shocking here, so brace yourselves, okay? The idea that all screen time is evil is misguided, in my opinion. Those who believe that all screen time is evil don't fully understand the true purpose of technology. While it's very true that many types of screen time are bad for young children, specifically, I'm talking about passive screen time. Passive screen time is when kids are staring at a screen for entertainment. You know, you can tell that screen time is passive when you see kids staring at the screen with an open mouth, just watching. But there's another type of screen time, and it's called interactive screen time, and it can be helpful as a teaching tool. So I want you to keep an open mind. You can achieve student engagement when you use technology for its true purpose, which is to enhance communication. During your virtual lessons, young children need a connection with you. You're going to use technology to connect and communicate with children and support their social and emotional needs in the process. In order to be truly helpful for young children, your lessons must be delivered live for the maximum social emotional benefits. Because if you're doing a recorded version, then all the students are doing is watching, and it becomes passive screen time, which we don't want. So I strongly discourage you from pre-recording your lessons because you'll lose that connection with your students. This is how you make virtual lessons warm and inviting instead of cold and impersonal. And listen, this is such an important time in history. You are pioneers on the virtual learning frontier. The work that you do as a professional educator during this crisis is going to be so powerful and so impactful. But it's difficult to see the forest for the trees right now while we're in the middle of it. I challenge you to look at this as an opportunity to educate parents on the different types of screen time instead of thinking of it as an evil thing. And next, I want to talk about a concept that some of you may be familiar with. So your students, they already have a family at home, but they also have a classroom family. They need interaction from you as the leader of that classroom family, whether that's right now or next year. Think of it like this. Which would your mother prefer for Mother's Day? A recorded video of you wishing her Happy Mother's Day, or a live video chat with her where you wish her Happy Mother's Day face to face? People are creating connections all over the world right now using technology. In addition to Mother's Day, we've seen virtual Passover, virtual Easter services, virtual birthdays, newscasters on major networks reporting live from their living rooms, virtually everything. And I understand the concerns that some schools have around confidentiality, but there are ways to deliver your lessons to comply with those restrictions. So the first thing you're going to want to do in any virtual lesson is to acknowledge the feelings and emotions of your students and provide them with the support and guidance to help them recognize these emotions. Now, these are just some little pictures that I have, and I printed them out and I taped them to craft sticks. So super low tech, right? And when we start our lesson, we do a little check-in, right? So the kids have the little craft sticks with the little faces on them. And at the beginning of our lesson, I ask them to hold up a stick to show how they're feeling that day, right? And then I can unmute children as needed. Now, if you have a class of 22 students, this might be a little more difficult. But if you have fewer than 15 or 12, it's doable. So you'll have to decide for yourself what is the optimal number of children you're willing to do this with. But you can address them in groups as well. Oh, I see that Sunny and Jacob and Christian and Melanie, they all have the happy face up. That's right. I'm happy to be here too. I can tell that you're happy to be here. I'm so excited that you're here in class with us today. And oh my, I see that Valerie and, let me think of another name. Valerie and Mateo, they have a sad face today. Oh my goodness. I hope that everything's okay, and then check in with them, because not all kids are going to have the same stick, but you're acknowledging those feelings. You're getting kids to communicate and express, and you can help talk them through things, right? That is such an important part of having a good virtual lesson, is promoting those social emotional skills. And social emotional supports. So for those children, and I've forgotten the names I made up for the children who were unhappy or showing the sad face on their craft stick, in those instances, you might say, if you're feeling angry or sad today, don't forget we have, and then show them the pictures. These are social emotional support cards here from one of my social emotional packs. And you can show them the ones that your class is familiar with, right? So starting in the fall, you're going to want to be very sure to start your year off with introducing a few of these social emotional supports. So in case you have to go back to virtual learning, you can break these out and use them on screen and say, remember, when we're feeling sad, mad, angry, we can use this technique that we have identified, and you have a card there that you show them so they can do it. And you're probably going to want to use a card that shows something they can do at home without any special tools. And a lot of times that card is going to be about breathing, whether that's blowing in or breathing in and blowing out the birthday candles, or breathing in and blowing the petals off a flower, or the things like that. You're going to want to make sure that you have some strategies you can give kids to help them learn how to self-regulate, because that is one of the most important goals in any early childhood programs, is to help kids develop self-regulation skills. So we have to make sure that we're incorporating feelings, emotions, social emotional learning into each of our virtual sessions. It can't be about just filling their heads with knowledge, because it's not any good to know the colors, numbers, letters, and shapes if you don't have any social emotional skills to support them. Another thing that young children need is consistent routines at home, just like they need consistent routines at school. And this is why there was a big clash at the very beginning of this virtual learning crisis between parents and teachers. Parents don't have the same structure and routine at home that you have in your classroom at school. Yet we were trying to help kids and parents adapt to virtual learning without that supportive structure in place. And that is where the problems were rooted from. And it's our job as professional educators to help parents create a consistent routine in their homes and to explain why it's so important. And when parents have the tools they need and the guidance to implement those tools, they'll be better able to support and extend their children's learning at home. You know, and let's face it, we're building this plane as we fly it. We're learning as we go. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. But guess what? You've been doing an amazing job so far. Jimmy Fallon was not lying when he said that teachers deserve $1 billion twice a week. On the screen is a picture of my at-home preschool schedule, if you will. And it was designed to be used in the home by parents and children. And so parents can help establish these routines in their own homes by having, there's little charts like this where the children can move pictures from one side to the other, from incomplete to complete. And they can be involved in the process just like they are in our classrooms with our daily schedule. The pictures that are included in this are more for children in the home rather than children in a schoolroom setting. So, and those come from my preschool at home daily schedule. I recently spoke with a parent who said that his 3.5-year-old child was fine on his preschool Zoom call when it was just the teacher reading a story or singing a song, but he had major meltdowns the minute the other kids started talking. And you know how the talking gets out of control when you're doing virtual lessons. And you know what? That's okay. We have to accept that this is going to be more difficult for some children to do than others. Some children are not going to thrive in this kind of an environment. We have to view this as an opportunity to reflect on what we're doing and how we can tweak it or improve it to make it more effective for all of our students. So in this case, this particular child might benefit from less time spent sharing by the other students to decrease his wait time. But we also need to be flexible and invite the child to participate in the portions that he can successfully participate in. So in this particular case, it was decided that the child would participate with the story, the circle time, the songs and all that. But when it came time for the kids to share, and a lot of them would take you on the tour of their bathroom or whatever, that he didn't have to stay for that portion and he would just leave at that point because it frustrated him. And it brought up questions because he's 3.5 years old about why can't he see his friends? Why can he see them on the screen but not in person? And we just need to be very aware of that. We also have to explain to the parents the purpose of our virtual lessons. At the early childhood level, they're more about creating connections and feelings of stability and less about learning colors, letters, numbers, and shapes. And if we truly want to support parents and students, then communication with them is key. Now, I know there are many of you out there who would never share your phone number with your students' parents because you're afraid of the fallout that would cause, and for good reason. And many school districts prohibit the exchange of personal phone numbers. So, what's one thing we can do? Because we have to offer more than one way for parents and students to communicate with us during virtual learning, but not too many that it becomes overwhelming. And so for those of you who fear out giving your phone number, who are prohibited from doing so, I really like the free app called Voxer. It's basically a walkie-talkie. When children use it or parents use it, they press the little green button just like you would on a walkie-talkie, and they talk. And it's basically like a voicemail. It'll beep on your end, but you don't have to pick it up. And you can go listen to those messages and respond with a voice message to the child, or the parent for that matter. It's very quick, it's very easy, and I just love it. So I thought I would share it with you because you might find it helpful too. But we need to give them more than one way to connect with us. If you focus on connecting with your students, you offer them very clear social emotional support right from the beginning of your lessons. If you help the parents create healthy routines at home, and if you have realistic expectations about teaching virtually, then your lessons will be much more effective and successful. Okay? All right, that brings us to step 2. In step 1, we looked at how to support social emotional skills in your virtual lessons and how to create real connections and communication with your students and families. Now we're going to prepare or plan for your virtual lessons. Are you ready? Let's dive in. So the second most popular question I received about distance teaching and learning was, how long should my lessons be? Followed closely by how often. So when planning your lessons, take into consideration the attention spans of your students. So child development experts generally agree that a reasonable attention span to expect of a child is 2 to 3 minutes per year of their age. That's the amount of time in which a typical child can maintain focus on a given task. So it's all broken out for you there on the screen. Our job as teachers is to slowly stretch the attention spans of our students over the course of the year to increase their attention spans, right? When it comes to how often to hold a virtual class, I truly believe that we should strive for quality over quantity. That means brief virtual lessons daily, once daily. And if you're planning for classes that only meet 2 days or 3 days a week, then plan for one lesson on the day or days that you would usually have your in-person class. When we get into the whole 2 lessons a day, one-on-one lesson with each child and so forth, we really get into the overwhelm, not only on your part as a teacher, but on the part of the students as well. So getting parent participation was the third most popular question I received. So explaining the length of the lessons and their purpose to parents is paramount. Parents need to have guidance when it comes to preparing for virtual lessons because this is entirely new to them. You must set them up for success by explaining how distance learning is different from classroom instruction and how they can make it work. We must work more closely with parents as partners now, more than ever before, because parents are the ones who will be extending the learning in the home. And while you're only face-to-face with them for a few minutes with your students, you need to be there to guide the parents on what to do next in fun and playful ways. So on the screen here, you can see a question and answer handout, if you will, if you call it a handout or you call it a digital PDF, whatever you want to call it, that kind of sets the tone for parents. It talks about the length of time that you're going to be spending on these lessons and the reasons why, what their children will be learning, all kinds of important information, how they can connect with you, the teacher, how either the parent or the child, and troubleshooting issues. What if my child doesn't like the virtual classroom setting? So you're going to want to have something like that in place for your parents so you don't get stuck in conflicts with them or the vicious cycle of, I do these lessons, but no one shows up. Why am I doing them? So that comes back to setting your parents up for success. So it's super, super important. And then remember that telling parents they need to participate in virtual lessons and showing them how to do it are two entirely different things. Saying our class is at 11 a.m. is telling. Explaining how they can help prepare their child for the lesson and set them up for success and offering support is what they really need to be able to fully participate. And if you have ever once complained about how little you're appreciated or paid, now is your time to make a difference and change that narrative, my friend. If you show up in this way for your parents right now, you could be instrumental in changing the entire world's view of teachers and what they're worth. It's the ripple effect, and you have a unique opportunity to be at the forefront of this movement. Be the change. But remember, this is not a familiar format for us. During a virtual lesson, you need something to keep you on track until you establish a basic rhythm for these lessons. You need to have Goldilocks lesson plans that are just right for virtual teaching, or your students will lose interest and they won't be engaged. So on the screen here is my virtual lesson plan template that walks you through each of the 5 components of a successful virtual lesson. And this is available in my distance learning toolkit, which we'll talk about later. And here's another thing that is really interesting about distance learning. So reading multiple versions of the same story. Some of you may already do this, and that's wonderful. And that's great because actually it's really helpful when it comes to distance learning because you are helping create that classroom community that we talked about, right? That classroom family. So when you read multiple versions of the same story, there are great ways to introduce story concepts like beginning, middle, end, characters, setting, comparing and contrasting. And when you read the same version, so let's say you have a 5-day class, the class meets every day, 5 days a week. And you start with the class on Monday in person and you read the story, Goldilocks. Let's say Goldilocks, click on the screen. And then they have distance, some of them have distance learning on Tuesday. You can continue with a different version of the story. Let's say that same cohort comes back on Wednesday, you can read a different version of Goldilocks. And on Thursday, they're at home, then a different version. And then on Friday, you can do all kinds of fun, culminating activities and have great discussions comparing and contrasting and talking about the different characters and settings. Of course, you're going to do some of this throughout the week as well. But I really think that this multiple readings of the same story, but maybe different versions, help children pay attention and listen more closely because it's familiar to them. It's not a surprise. What are we going to be doing in class today? They're going to know we're going to be doing something about Goldilocks. We're going to be reading a different version. It's going to pique their curiosity, but also give them a sense of feeling comfortable, safe, and secure because they kind of know what's going to happen next. In repeated readings of the same story, allow children to build a connection to the story and allow them the time and the space to really connect with the story on a deeper level. And children learn through repetition. A study on language acquisition found that children pick up new vocabulary more quickly from repeated readings of the same story than when they encounter the same words in different new texts. So when we reread books together, our conversations around those books get richer and richer, and our understanding deepens as we get to know the characters better and we notice new things in the story. The stories we read aloud multiple times, or the different versions of the same story, become familiar stories that children love to read on their own. And knowing a book well increases children's confidence or motivation to read and engagement. When children read, retell, or recite a familiar book, they're using cognitive skills that go way beyond simple memorization. So I encourage you to think about using repeated readings next year, different versions of the same story, and that's usually going to take place with fairy tales. And also, there are some other stories as well that lend themselves very well to repeated readings. Another way that you're going to create very engaging and fun virtual lessons is to use finger plays, songs, and rhymes in every single lesson. So these build connections with you as the teacher, and participating with their classmates is huge, right? So we have them participating in the beginning with some social emotional activities, and then we read a story, and then we have them participate again, active participation during the songs, rhymes, and finger plays. It's going to increase engagement. This is how you're going to get their buy-in. You're going to invite interaction, right? The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. And songs, rhymes, and finger plays are fun. Don't even get me started on the academic benefits, because there are so many. You know, the very basics are oral language, vocabulary, rhyming, increased engagement, memory, fine motor. I could go on and on. And if you don't know any finger plays, don't worry. I have some listed for you in your handout. Next up is puppets and visual props. Again, we're looking to make your virtual lessons so fun and engaging they won't want to miss them, right? And these are strategies you can incorporate in your classroom that will have the same benefits, right? So again, puppets and visual props are going to increase engagement by capturing children's attention. It's harder to capture children's attention on screen than it is in person, because you're competing with distractions and maybe some established screen time behaviors. And your puppets, they don't have to be fancy or expensive. They can be paper bags or socks that you decorate, right? They don't have to be fancy or expensive. Children increases engagement. It gets kids excited about showing up to your virtual classes, and it gets them participating. And next up is interactive books. There's a list of interactive books in your handout, but when we choose books that invite children to participate, right? So on the screen, you can see Plant the Tiny Seed, Tap the Magic Tree. These are books that encourage children to participate in the telling of the story by asking them to either tap or touch the pages. Now, in a virtual lesson, they would do that by touching the screen, right? But they invite children to say things and do things and move in certain ways. These books are highly engaging. They work in the classroom, but they work even better on a virtual screen. So make sure you check out that list of highly engaging interactive books. And when it comes to creating virtual lessons, don't reinvent the wheel. That is what makes it overwhelming, right? There are easy, editable lesson plans using things that parents already have at home that you can use. We've created 12 of these done-for-you lesson plans. Each one is an entire week's worth of plans at your fingertips, and I'll tell you more about them in a little while. So another question I get is, what about my school's curriculum? There's nothing in my school's curriculum that talks about distance learning, and this is true, because nobody could have predicted the last time they created a curriculum that there would be distance learning involved. So use what you can from your school's curriculum, but apply these principles they've laid out for you here to adapt and adjust your lessons to this unique situation that we're in right now. The lesson plans that I have created, they're editable. You can type in your own state standards. You can type in the standards from your curriculum, but don't worry about following the school's curriculum, because you can follow your school's curriculum by taking bits and pieces from them and creating these engaging lessons using the framework that I'm outlining for you here. So now it's time to check in. So can you imagine finishing a virtual lesson and feeling like it was successful instead of beating yourself up about it? I want you to stop for a moment, take a breath, and then sit with what we've just discussed for a moment and let it sink in. We've covered a lot of information so far. And when you're ready, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being I have zero confidence in myself, and 5 being I got this, I want you to write down the number between 1 and 5 that you're feeling right now about delivering virtual lessons. After we've just finished the 2 of the 3-step process, right? We finished 2 steps so far. 1 is not very confident at all, and 5 is I've got this. And don't forget, this session is not over yet. Next up is how to deliver your virtual lesson plans. So sit with it for a minute, pause this video if you need to, think about how you're feeling, and on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being I have no confidence in myself that I can do this, and 5 being I've got this, write down the number that you're feeling right now. And then you can unpause this video when you're ready. So the 4th most popular question I received was about overcoming your own anxiety about all the new technology that we've had to figure out since virtual learning became a thing. And there were those of you who were also feeling self-conscious, delivering your lessons with parents there, looking at you on the screen, right? That's not something many of us are used to. And listen, I get it, but nobody is going to look back on this crisis and say, ha, I remember when Mrs. Levin dropped her puppet during that virtual class. No. They're going to remember how you showed up and you gave it your all. They're going to remember how it made their kids feel to see you during each virtual lesson. They're going to remember how you showed up with a smile plastered on your face, despite the fact that the entire world was crumbling outside your window. And they're going to be grateful to you for that. Nobody is going to remember your bloopers. I promise, pinky swear. Remember, this is not about you. It's about the kids. And the sooner you let go of that negative thinking, the sooner you'll be able to deliver fun, engaging, and interactive lessons to your kids. Are you with me? I thought so. Another way that we're going to get engagement and interaction out of our students is to use their name cards. You probably have name cards already, right? I hope so. This is just one way that I have used them in the virtual lessons that I have done. This is just index cards. I cut them in half. I glued the edges to a piece of poster board. Now, if you have more than 8 students, you're going to want to have a longer, bigger poster board. But in this case, I just used 8. And then I printed out some name cards. I printed them out smaller because I can hold them up to the screen. It's not like in a classroom where I have to make sure the kid in the back of the room can see. I can just hold it closer to the screen, right? So I save paper and ink that way. I printed them out smaller so they fit in the little half index card pockets that I created. And as the students enter the room for our virtual lesson, I can pull out the name card and personally greet them. Literacy, check, right? We can talk about the first letter of the child's name. We can say, good morning or good afternoon. I'm so glad you're here. And take their name. I'd have the name cards out on a table in front of me or on a flat space in front of me. And then pick up the name card as the child enters the room, hold it up closer to the camera so they can see it. Say whatever you're going to say, like, welcome to class. We're so glad you're here. Emma starts with the letter E, and I'm going to put her name card in the pocket to show she's here. You're definitely going to want to use their names. It's going to give them that personal feel that they crave and they need in order to increase engagement, to get buy-in, to get them to stay. Another thing you're going to want to do is, I know that you all have a visual picture schedule in your classroom, right? And your students need to have that visual picture schedule available during your virtual lessons as well. So what I did was I took my visual picture schedule that I already have at Pre-K Pages, I shrunk it down so that I could print out the little pieces smaller, and I put them on a paint stick with Velcro. And so I can hold up the visual picture schedule and I can take things off as we complete them. And you can see there's only 5 steps in my virtual lesson. Now, if you have 6, that's okay. Print your things smaller or get a longer paint stick to put them on. But we always start with a welcome. We go into our story and music. We have an activity of some sort, and then there's always a closure. And as we do them, we take them off the stick so they can see what's left. They can see the time progression, right? That doesn't mean clocks. It just means the act of the time that we have together. And when it comes to read alouds for your circle time or your virtual lesson, it's less about the book and more about how you read it aloud, right? I like to think about something Dr. Jean always says that I just love, and it's the teacher brings the magic. And that's true. So let's pretend that you're reading this book, one of my favorite books, Mrs. Wishy-Washy's Farm. And you're going to read different farm books all week, or maybe you're going to act out Mrs. Wishy-Washy on Friday, or whatever it is you're going to do. You have 2 options. You can read the book like this. Let's pretend I'm holding the book. This is Mrs. Wishy-Washy, and this is her farm. Here is her barn. Or you could read it like this. This is Mrs. Wishy-Washy, and this is her farm. Here is her horse, and here is her barn. Your choice. Which story would you rather listen to? The teacher brings the magic. It's all about your voice and your inflection and how you look at the camera and you look at the story and you ask questions throughout. It's all about you. It's all about bringing the magic and making it fun and interactive. Music. We talked a little bit about music using songs, rhymes, and finger plays. And for those of you who don't know a lot of songs, rhymes, or finger plays, or if you want to adapt those to virtual teaching, I have a freebie that I'll link in the handout. It's these little pictures, and they're popular songs. They're like 5 Little Monkeys, Itsy Bitsy Spider, Sticky Bubblegum, 5 Green and Speckled Frogs, things like that. There's a whole bunch of them. I think there's 20 of them maybe. And I printed them on colored paper just again to give that visual pop. We're always looking to increase engagement any way we can. So I printed them on colored paper and I stuck them on craft sticks. And now we have choices during our music time or our movement time or whatever you want to call it. And I can invite children. I can say, oh, today it's Jacob's turn to choose our song. These are songs they should be somewhat familiar with from your classroom. So whenever you do distance learning, unless you're starting from scratch, having kids day 1 doing distance learning, they should be songs they're familiar with to create that sense of safety and security. So you're going to invite them to participate in the choice of the song, and they're going to be songs they're familiar with. And then next on this schedule is a game or an activity. So let's say, again, using Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm as an example, here I have a little plastic tub from the dollar store, and I printed off some pictures of different farm animals, and we can retell the story, and we can also add a little bit of math practice in there. And so I can add, there's a pig in the tub, and Mrs. Wishy-Washy is washing them. Wishy-washy, wishy-washy, wishy-washy. And along comes another pig. Now how many pigs are in the tub? And so forth. And then this pig leaves and so forth, right? It is a fun and engaging activity. You're also inviting participation because you're asking them, now how many pigs are in the tub? Now how many pigs are in the tub? And you can do it repeatedly with the different animals. I have a Mrs. Wishy-Washy doll, and I just love her to death. I craved one for years and years, but they didn't make one until just recently. So I bought her. She has nothing to do with this. You don't need one, but I am a Mrs. Wishy-Washy super fan, so I did get one myself, but no worries. Not necessary for the lesson. Oh, and here's one of my favorites. So at the end of every virtual lesson, there's a closure that you have, right? And in your classroom, you probably have some form of closure that you do, right? So we're going to want to make sure on our virtual lessons, not only that we have a welcome, but we also have closure. And that closure can take many different shapes or forms. I like to always either read the same story or do the same chant. This is the very classic, gotta go buffalo, after a while crocodile, see you later alligator. It's that, only it's in a book form. You don't need this book. There are many different ways that you can just sing the chant. You can have it written in a pocket chart. You can do any number of things that you like, but whatever it is, it should be consistent and it should be the same every day, so that the children know that this is the end of our time together, right? Just like they know it's the beginning of our time together, because we do the same things every morning. We sing a good morning song. Now we're gonna do the same thing at the end of the day. Whether you sing this or you chant it or whatever, it's gonna be the same. So the beginning and the end are always the same, just like your favorite TV show. They usually have an intro song. Think of those HGTV shows that you watch and you binge watch, right? They have an intro song and they have an ending song as well. And it lets you know that that's what's happening. And in between those times, you know what happens too. They have like 10 minutes of show, then 5 minutes of commercials, and then 10 minutes of show and 5 minutes of commercials. And there's a very structured routine that they have in place. And we want the same for our lessons, our virtual lessons. So that brings us to the tech. Another question that I received from so many people during this crisis is the fear of the technology. Millions of questions. How do you use this platform, that platform, this platform? There's a platform for millions of them. But listen up, because it's not the tech that's holding you back. It's the fact that everything that we're doing is brand spanking new to everybody, right? You made the shift from seeing your kids in class every day to teaching virtually overnight. You, my friend, have superpowers. Distance learning at the preschool level is the absolute worst case scenario. Yet, here you are. You've been doing it on the daily, and you're doing a bang-up job of it, by the way. You can do hard things. Are you saying that you can herd kittens, aka teach young kids, but you're gonna let tech get in the way of that? Like, no way, nope, just no. So you have to understand that all you have to do is learn that tech once and you're done. Everything else, then you can focus on everything else, right? So if you can just get over the hurdle, the fear of technology, the fear of the unknown, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of being seen on camera or being watched, all of that, let it go. As Elsa says, let it go. Because all you have to do when it comes to the tech is learn it once, and then you can focus on being your amazing self and showing up for your kids and delivering amazing virtual lessons. And the rest of the questions that I got during the peak of the crisis were mostly related to things that were out of your control. And again, they're going back to what that university dean said about uncertainty and how humans will do almost anything to not have to deal with uncertainty. So let's take a look at this chart on the screen for a moment. This concept is from Stephen R. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The blue circle represents what we do have control over. The green circle is what we have influence over. And the yellow circle represents what is completely out of your control. And if you spend all of your time up here in the yellow level being concerned about things you can't control, you cannot focus on the other things, right? On the influence. You can't. You can't focus on those other things. So you have to stay out of the yellow zone and stay inside your blue and your green zones in order to be an effective teacher and an effective human. Because what happens in teaching a lot is we spend so much time in the yellow that we end up not being able to focus on what really matters. So you can control your behavior and your attitude, right? And then the concerns up here, kids don't have devices, they don't have internet, they don't show up. Your district made a poor choice with the technology. All of that's out of your control. But you have influence over how you can plan your lessons effectively, how you can support your parents to help them become more successful in supporting their students through virtual lessons. You can show up with a smile. You can try your best, right? That is where we need to stay, in the blue and the green. And the areas of concern, those are things you can't change. So do the Elsa and let it go. Okay? All right, great. So here are some other questions I got a lot during the peak of the crisis. What if they're all talking at the same time? Well, they talked at the same time when they were in your classroom too, right? So when you have time built in, time to talk, you're going to give them an outlet for that. It's a very controlled environment. The virtual classroom is almost like a teacher's utopia because you're in control. Mute and unmute are your friend, my friend. You can build time in for talking, but you don't let it get out of control. There's a fine line knowing when to mute and when to unmute. Another thing you can do is give them homework and say, after we're done with our lesson today, I want you to sit down and draw a picture or write an email that they can send to you, with their parent, of course. Or they can use the app, that free Voxer app we talked about before. They can actually talk to you and send you a message. So invite them to communicate in other ways because you can't sit there and listen to all 22 kids talk at the same time. You can be selective about who you choose and what they talk about, and then give them opportunities to expand the conversation beyond the confines of the virtual lesson. And what if they want to take you on a tour of their backyard, house, or bedroom? But you know what? It's funny, but it reminds me of when I was a Head Start teacher and we did home visits. Most of the time when I visited a student's home, the student wanted to take me on a tour of their house or their bedroom. So what did I do? With the parents' permission, I always accepted because it matters to the child. When you are on their device or their computer at home, you are a guest in that home. You have to use your best guest behavior and accept the tour because anything less would be rude, right? You can appoint certain students to share on certain days at the end of a lesson, kind of like that old school show and tell that we used to do back in the day. But you can't let it spiral out of control. There should be some ground rules, right? Who shares on what day and so forth. And once they get that out of their system, like when I I would go back to children's homes for a second home visit. They didn't always show me their bedroom the second time. It was just that initial time, the first time I was in the home, So don't worry. It's okay. Remember that old song, Don't Worry, Be Happy? I know it's kind of hard to think that way right now, but at least a little. So remember, you were here because you were feeling confused, and you know that virtual teaching isn't the best way for young children to learn, but you may be required to do it, or you may have done it and you're not looking forward to doing it again. There are techniques you can use to make virtual teaching as ideal as possible to up your virtual teaching game. And you're here because you were struggling with how to replicate what you do in the classroom on a screen. You just wish somebody would give you a roadmap that made you feel good about it. And this has everything to do with how you structure and deliver your lessons each day and the partnerships you're forging with parents as you support them in their journey as unexpected homeschoolers. And you're also here because you're feeling frustrated by the new tech that's preventing you from being the excellent teacher we all know you are in the classroom. So remember that number that I had you write down at the end of step 2? I want you to take a minute and reflect and reevaluate how you feel now on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best. I've got this. I want you to write down how confident you are now, how you're feeling about this whole picture after you've been through the whole 3-step process with me. Remember, 1 is not very confident and 5 is I've got this. So you might want to pause this video and take a moment and see if those numbers changed. Hopefully, your number got closer to 5. And when you're done, you can come back. So, would you like me to help you deliver more engaging, interactive lessons while teaching virtually, and also prepare you to be a stellar teacher once you do return to the classroom in the fall, hopefully? So, the take-home lesson plan bundle. So these are 12 of my super popular take-home lesson plans that I designed specifically for teaching virtually, for distance learning. So these are all created in ways that are designed specifically to be sent home to parents. Each day's plans are in separate files, so you can upload them and share them through your secure platform, whatever that may be, whatever your school uses. And they're also editable, so that if you have any specific curricula that you use, you can implement and insert those standards or those activities right into those plans as well, and customize them to really meet your needs. So we have 12 different versions there. Nursery rhymes, there's 2 volumes of those. The 3 Little Pigs, Goldilocks, Little Red Hen, Billy Goat Scruff, Jack and the Beanstalk, Caterpillars and Butterflies, Farm, Jungle, Ocean, and Dinosaurs. So a whole bunch of distance learning lesson plans to help you up your virtual teaching game. And here is what an attendee of this webinar had to say about her experience using the distance learning lesson plans, and how her membership in the teaching tribe has helped her regain a sense of calm during this time of unprecedented uncertainty. She said she bought and used the lesson plan templates for 3 weeks. I love the spirit of positivity, professionalism, and enthusiasm you have. Well, thank you. I decided to join your tribe about half an hour into this event. I love your vault and the office hours and power hours. I find the information and materials to be both helpful and practical. I feel calmer already. That's awesome. And welcome aboard, by the way. Very cool. Members of the teaching tribe have access to all of the distance learning lesson plans that I just showed you, plus the distance learning toolkit, which includes the virtual lesson plan template, the parent notes, the parent Q&A, and the parent prep note that sets your parents up for success, and all the other resources I mentioned in this session, like name cards, at-home picture schedule, classroom picture schedule, and the social emotional supports. And don't forget, a 1-month free trial of membership in the Teaching Tribe is included in the Invincible Educator package. So think about that for a minute and let that sink in, and I'll let you do the math on that because it's a much better deal. So that brings me to the end of this session. I want to thank you all for watching. And if you'd like to spend a little more time with this session or any of the others, you can purchase a package by clicking on the link below. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin. Bye.